The invasion of Russia by Napoleon Bonaparte was a critical turning point in his career and the history of Europe. It was a campaign that would prove to be a massive loss for the French. This strategic decision, made in 1812, would ultimately result in the destruction of the Grande Armée, consisting of over 600,000 soldiers. The repercussions of this failed invasion were far-reaching, impacting not only the French Empire, but also the Russian Empire and the balance of power in Europe. Napoleon's decision to invade Russia was motivated by a combination of factors. One of the primary reasons was his desire to enforce the continental system, an economic blockade against Britain. By targeting Russia, Napoleon aimed to pressure Tsar Alexander I into complying with this system. Additionally, he sought to maintain his hegemony over Europe and subdue any potential threats to his power. However, while these motivations were understandable from a strategic perspective, the execution of the campaign proved to be disastrous. Napoleon's initial invasion of Russia seemed promising. The French forces swiftly advanced, capturing major cities and defeating Russian armies. However, as the Russian winter set in and supply lines stretched thin, the situation quickly deteriorated. The harsh climate, combined with guerrilla tactics employed by Russian forces, led to severe attrition among the invading troops. The lack of provisions and proper winter clothing became grave issues, causing widespread suffering and death. As the French army pressed further into Russia, they encountered the infamous Scorched Earth strategy employed by the Russians. Villages were burned, crops destroyed, and livestock slaughtered, leaving no resources for the invading forces to sustain themselves. This Scorched Earth tactic effectively deprived the French army of the means to feed and shelter its massive numbers, exacerbating the dire situation. By the time the French army reached Moscow, it was a hollow victory. The city had been abandoned and intentionally set ablaze by the Russians, leaving Napoleon's soldiers with no shelter or provisions. The once glorious Grand Army was now facing attrition on an unprecedented scale. With the onset of winter, the situation grew even more desperate. The retreat from Moscow became a catastrophic disaster, with soldiers succumbing to the freezing temperatures, starvation, and constant attacks from Russian forces. The consequences of Napoleon's invasion of Russia were profound. The French army, once an unbeatable force, was now decimated and demoralized. Out of the initial 600,000 soldiers, only a fraction returned, forever tarnishing Napoleon's image as an invincible military genius. This catastrophic loss of manpower weakened the French Empire significantly, leaving it vulnerable to its enemies. Furthermore, the invasion had unintended consequences for the Russian Empire, as it fostered a spirit of nationalism and unity among the Russian people, ultimately contributing to their victory and the downfall of Napoleon. The lessons learned from Napoleon's failed invasion of Russia are timeless. This historic event teaches us the importance of understanding the geographic and climatic challenges of an unfamiliar territory before embarking on a military campaign. It also demonstrates the destructive power of a scorched earth strategy and the resilience of a united people defending their homeland. Napoleon's defeat in Russia serves as a stark reminder of the perils of overextending one's empire and underestimating the resolve of an adversary.